Blast from the Past deck, James was talking about all of the characters and all the incredible stories. It is a historic themed deck, so it's all about playing artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. However, with so many doctors and so many companions in the deck to kind of choose from, it let us kind of go a little sideways on some of the designs to let you build some kind of more unique strategies that still play into what's going on, but let you go and, if you take these out of the deck and go build something else, or you already play them as alternate commanders, you get to do something that is maybe slightly different or sideways to the historic theme. So with the first Doctor, I knew I wanted a Doctor that found the TARDIS. It just makes perfect sense. And, well, who better than the first Doctor? And here he is, kind of looking out over that TARDIS console. When he comes into play, you find the TARDIS. And then whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, you get to put a counter on an artifact or a creature. Now, that's a really good fit because the TARDIS, as we've previewed before, and we'll show off again later in this stream, lets you Cascade. So by getting the TARDIS, you can Cascade and then, trigger this ability and make your creatures a little bit bigger. Susan, on the other hand, the Doctor's first ever companion, the Doctor's granddaughter, as she is called, she has kind of two things going on. The first is she's got this ability that's good for plane chase. So as a reminder, these decks have 10 new plane chase cards a piece in them. And if you're playing Plane Chase, Susan lets you kind of manipulate that a little bit, and the TARDIS also lets you planeswalk. So if you're playing the first Doctor and the Susan together, you can do some pretty cool plane shenanigans. But I'll note that just tapping for a mana out of the command zone is a pretty strong ability too. So even if you're not playing Plane Chase, being able to put Susan down on the second turn, every single game having a free ramp spell, in terms of how many cards you're spending, every single game out of the command zone is really, really powerful. So do not discount her. Even if you're not playing Plane Chase, this card can be quite strong as well. So that's kind of what's going on here with this Susan and the first Doctor.
All right, let's check out the second Doctor and Jamie McCrimmon.
Il secondo dottore, creatura leggendaria, dottore del tempo, signore dottore del tempo. I giocatori non hanno un limite massimo di carte in mano. All'inizio della nostra fase finale, esatto, sì, ogni giocatore può pescare una carta. Ogni giocatore che lo fa non può attaccare tu o i permanenti che controlli durante il suo prossimo turno. E Jamie McCrimmon dice: creatura leggendaria, guerriero umano, travolgere. Quando castiamo una magia storica, lui prende più X più X fino alla fine del turno, dove X è il costo della magia lanciata.
Time traveling life. He fought like Cybermen on the moon and all sorts. But yeah, he's a super cool character and a companion, that came from the past, which was super exciting as well.
Yeah, I think it was, it's definitely something that really opens your eyes in Doctor Who, right? The first time you see a companion that the Doctor picks up, like you said, from the fields of Scotland in the 1800s, it's like, oh wow, this show can do so many different things. And Jamie went on to be a fan favorite companion, and I'm so excited we have him here. And that flavor text, you might be wondering what it is. That's sort of his Scottish battle cry in the show, right? Given that he's from 1800 Scotland, no matter where he goes, even when he is fighting Cybermen on the moon, he still loves saying his trademark battle cry as he rushes into battle and tries to get the job done.
Let's take a look at the third Doctor and Joe Grant.
Il terzo
Absolutely.
dottore.
So the third Doctor.
Il terzo dottore, 2 verde e blu, creatura leggendaria, dottore, signore del tempo, travolgere. Il terzo dottore prende +1/+1 per ogni non creatura token. Per ogni pedina non creatura che controlli. Quando il terzo dottore entra nel campo di battaglia, crea a tua scelta un indizio, un cibo o un tesoro. Joe Grant. Ogni carta storica nella tua mano ha cicla 2 bianco. Quando cicli una carta, mette il segnino +1/+1 su Joe Grant.
Unit, which is the Unified Intelligence Task Force, which is where he met Joe Grant, the companion on screen there as well, who became like his lab assistant. And they had adventures that, although they were stuck on Earth, they still, had so much. They faced the Master, the Sea Devils, and all sorts. So So yeah, still had very exciting times.
Joe Grant on the other side, she gives all your cards cycling, all your historic cards cycling, and then you get bigger whenever you cycle. So, of course, the deck's full of historic cards. You have extra, you can cycle them away. I'll say that this art came back with her on a motorcycle, and I was like, this is so perfect for cycling. I mean, you gotta love the cycling motorcycle connection. It just made me smile. Yeah, Joe, I believe it's actually someone that works for Unit. Is that right, James?
Yes, yeah. So that's how her and the Doctor met. She actually became his lab assistant at Unit.
Right, so that's a great connection. You get the third Doctor coming in. He starts working with Unit. Oh, and there's Joe that he gets to meet along the way, who's pretty cool.
All right, let's meet our next Doctor and companion, the fourth Doctor, and Sarah Jane Smith.
Quarto dottore, costo 2 sempre verde e blu, creatura leggendaria, dottore signore del tempo. Puoi guardare la prima carta del tuo grimorio in qualsiasi momento. Solo una volta per ogni turno puoi lanciare una terra storica o lanciare una magia storica dalla cima del tuo grimorio. Quando lo fai crei un cibo. E Sarah Jane Smith dice ogni qualvolta lanci una magia storica investiga. Questa abilità triggera solo una volta.
By the incredible late Elizabeth Sladen. She lets you investigate whenever you play a historic card, and that means that if you're trying to clear off the top card of your deck to find a new historic card, oh hey, Sarah Jane can let you crack one of those clues you made off of investigate to find something new there. So there's some really great synergy between these two cards. And for a 2-mana commander on Sarah Jane Smith, you can get a lot of clues out of this card over the course of the game. Anything on these two as like one of the most iconic duos in all of Doctor Who, James, that you want to share?
Yeah, I just love these ones. Like that image of Tom Baker, you've just like everything iconic about that Doctor is like captured in one. And his phrase like "Would you like a jelly baby?" is it's just something that you can't buy a packet of jelly babies without saying it. But yeah, I think like universally the two characters are loved. And as you were saying, like Sarah Jane Smith actually returned later on. She met the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor as well. She was hugely popular. She got her own show, the Sarah Jane Adventures, and when the Doctor actually dropped her off on Earth, she continued being an investigative journalist and had her own adventures on Earth as well. So yeah, really really cool character.
Yeah, Gavin, you also mentioned that this is the most common pairing you'll play out of the box. This is probably a good time to talk about the mixing and matching of the Doctors and companions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great things about Doctor's Companion is that you can mix and match. Now, when it comes to Doctor Who, there are iconic pairings, right? You have the 10th Doctor and Rose, you have the 4th Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith, and we made some of those iconic pairings the face cards for the deck. So when you go and buy the product, you play with people, you can grab those right out of the box. But part of the fun is being able to mix and match, right? And one of the big mottos in design was build your own episode, tell your own story, right? And so if you want to play the, Sarah Jane Smith and the 10th Doctor, hey, that canonically happened. That makes sense. You want to play Jamie McCrimmon and the 10th Doctor, when you get all these decks and mush them all together, sure, go nuts, right? Tell your own Doctor Who story. There's nothing saying that they couldn't have met somewhere in space and time. It's totally plausible. And so that kind of mixing and matching lets you go build some really fun decks. And out of the box, there's a handful of different pairings you can grab to be able to play if you don't want to play the one on the face. That said, for every deck, there's kind of that prescribed face card and featured commander that you get to use that are what we think is like a great out-of-the-box experience. But of course, I encourage you to kind of decide on your own if you want to play something totally different or you have a favorite Doctor, maybe you grab that one out of the box instead.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the 5th Doctor and Tegan.
Il quinto dottore, 2 bianco e blu, creatura leggendaria, dottore signore del tempo. All'inizio della tua sottofase finale metti un segnino +1/+1 su ogni creatura che controlli che non ha attaccato o non è entrato nel campo di battaglia questo turno. Metti un segnino +1/+1 su ogni creatura che controlli che non ha attaccato o è entrata nel campo di battaglia di questo turno. Stappa quella creatura. Tegan dice ogni qualvolta attacchi la creatura attaccante una creatura attaccante bersaglio storica, prende +1/+1 e prende indistruttibile fino alla fine del turno.
Kind of the flavor of both these characters and kind of how the Fifth Doctor's regeneration was, as well as who Tegan is.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the Fifth Doctor was sort of like the youngest we'd seen the Doctor, even though they were obviously technically the oldest. You're right. I wouldn't say they would be an attacking person. They were very much science led and sort of trying to find those sort of ways. Whereas Tegan was forthright and like not afraid to speak her mind. And wouldn't be afraid to tell the Doctor how she was really feeling. Tegan's actually another character like Sarah Jane that came back in the newer era of Doctor Who as well. She met the 13th Doctor and again was exactly the like still that bold and not afraid to speak her mind characteristic as well.
And that ability word we see on Tegan, by the way, Braveheart, is kind of a classic phrase in the show. Braveheart Tegan is what the doctor says to her. So that's kind of a neat little nod to that and that ability word.
All right. Let's meet the 6th Doctor and Perry Brown.
All right, the 6th Doctor.
Il sesto dottore, creatura leggendaria, signore del tempo, dottore. Quando lanci una magia storica, copiala. Tranne se la copia non è leggendaria. Questa abilità triggera solo una volta ogni turno. Perry Brown dice la prima spell storica che lanciamo ogni turno ha convocazione.
So she can actually help you cast those big historic spells for the 6th Doctor to copy. The Trial of a Time Lord is when I think of 6th Doctor stories, like that kind of run, that season as it were, of him being on trial for crimes that he's not sure if he committed is so cool.
Yeah, it's a whole the whole season is all the Trial of the Time Lord, and in that season the Doctor actually confronts the Veil Yard as well, which is sort of like a reflection of his darker self, which is really awesome.
And we are going to see more about that episode later with one of our preview cards. Next up, we have the 7th Doctor and Ace, Fearless Rebel.
Il 7º dottore, 3 bianco e blu, creatura leggendaria, dottore, signore del tempo. Quando attacca, ogni qualvolta attacca, scegli una carta nella tua mano. Il giocatore in difesa indovina qual è il suo costo di mana, il suo valore di mana, se è superiore al numero di artefatti che controlli. Se sbaglia, puoi lanciarla senza pagare il suo costo di mana. Se non lanci la spell in questo modo, investiga. Ace è una ribelle senza paura. Quando Ace attacca, puoi sacrificare un artefatto. Se lo fai, metti un segnino +1/+1 su Ace e lei combatte con una creatura bersaglio controllata dal giocatore in difesa.
This is, a beloved pairing, another one from the classic deck that is one of the most beloved pairings in all of Doctor Who. Do you want to talk about these characters a little bit, James, the 7th Doctor and Ace, because it is such a loved pair from the show.
Yeah, they are, and it's amazing how loved they are. I mean, you got the 7th Doctor who was super quirky. He played for spoons. He wore the question mark sweater vest with the question mark umbrella. And again, like all the Doctors, he had such a range of emotions. He ranged from playing a clown to being super mysterious and all of that sort of stuff. And again, his relationship with Ace was really interesting because she called him Professor, so she was learning a lot from him. But they also had sometimes a bit of a rocky relationship at times because and then Ace in general is one of the most fan favorite companions ever. She used a baseball bat to hit a Dalek, like you can see there, and she had faith in the Doctor and became just a super bold person throughout her travels. And she's another companion that actually returned along with Tegan to meet the 13th Doctor later on too. So yeah, this is definitely a fan favorite pairing for sure.
All right, the last bit from the Blast in the Past decks, like Twist, it's going to be a Doctor and the TARDIS, which we referred to earlier. So here's the 8th.
L'ottavo dottore, creatura leggendaria, dottore, signore del tempo. Quando l'ottavo dottore entra nel campo di battaglia, milla 3 carte. Solo una volta durante ognuno dei tuoi turni puoi giocare una terra storica o lanciare un permanente storico dal tuo cimitero. Se lo fai, guadagna. Se questo permanente sta per lasciare il campo di battaglia, esilialo invece di metterlo in qualsiasi altro posto. E il TARDIS ormai lo conosciamo perché è una promo. Volare, quando il TARDIS attacca, se controlli un segno del tempo, la prossima magia che lanci in questo turno a cascata e puoi planeswalkare. Si anima con Creo 2, manovrare 2.
But because anyone can kind of pilot the TARDIS, they try their best, you know. But if you have a Time Lord in play, you can of course time travel with it, which allows you to cascade and planeswalk when you attack, which is pretty cool. And that goes all the way back to the first Doctor as well. Keep in mind the first Doctor will search up this card. Anything you want to say about the 8th Doctor there, James?
Yeah, I mean, like this like mini episode the 8th Doctor's in was so cool, like to see Paul McGann back as the Doctor, and you know we met up with them again during the Time War, and they realized the incarnation they needed to be Aurora to sort of like be in the Time War. So what the image you see there is what the Sisterhood of Khan gave him to make his next generation Aurora, so he could fight in the Time War. But yeah, it's such a cool episode. And I mean, like the TARDIS, like you could just go on and on about how iconic that is. It's probably the most iconic visual from the show. And obviously we're seeing the exterior of the TARDIS there, but the interior changes up as the Doctors go on as well. And it's just it's full of iconography, that one.
All right, that concludes the contents of well, not the entire contents of the Blast from the Past deck, but the Doctors and the Companions. We are going to show off some more cards from that deck when we get to the episode section a little bit later. But let's move on to talking about the Doctors and Companions in the Timey-Wimey deck. So, Gavin, tell us a little bit about the Timey-Wimey deck.
Yes, the Timey-Wimey deck focuses on the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctor's run, and it is a theme we have never done before. I'm really excited. It is a blast to play. It is time counter. So you're going to use Suspend, Vanishing, cards that kind of naturally accrue time counters over the course of the game. And you have a new mechanic called Time Travel. Very appropriate for Doctor Who. What Time Travel does is lets you basically manipulate your time counters. It takes them off of cards in Suspend and adds them to cards you have in play, so that you get to make your suspended cards show up a little bit faster, your vanishing cards stay around a little bit longer, and let you kind of manipulate the flow of time so that you get to be the master of time yourself. And now, James, this is one of the most popular runs in all of Doctor Who. If you're watching out there, there's a decent chance you know at least some of the stories from this run. Talk to us a bit, James, about just why this run is so popular and kind of what's going on with these characters.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like this, when I was saying, as kids, my parents were hiding behind the sofa on the last deck. This was the one where I was hiding behind the sofa for, and it was, an introduction to many people for Doctor Who. It's so yeah, it covers like Doctors 9, Christopher Eccleston, 10, David Tennant, and 11, Matt Smith. And it's just got so many moments that I think even if you've never seen it, you'll recognize, like David Tennant standing on the beach saying goodbye to Rose Tyler. Absolutely heartbreaking, and like the memes that has created as well, like just online all the time. But yeah, you've got some incredible adventures in there, like the 9th Doctor facing the Dalek Emperor, and Rose being the one, she absorbs the TARDIS and becomes a bad wolf and wipes them from existence. There's just so many epic moments. The 10th Doctor, for me, my favorite ever episode is an episode called Midnight, and I think that's within this deck as well, and it's just the creepiest episode I think ever. And then the 11th Doctor, his travels of Amy Pond, Clara Oswald, River Song, it's all in there, and I think like it just brought Doctor Who back to a new generation and made so many people fall in love with it. So yeah, super psyched about this deck.
All right,
there's a lot of time travel nonsense in those episodes, so it makes a lot of sense for us to care about time counters. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we're all like in the episode Blink, David Tennant, he appears on Easter eggs on DVDs, and I feel like that's what we are right now, just like talking about a weird ball of timey wimey, wibbly wobbly stuff. So yeah, I love it.
All right, well, let's meet the magic incarnations of many of these characters. Let's start with the Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler.
Okay, the Ninth Doctor.
Ok, il nonno dottore e Rose Tyler. Il nonno dottore dice rapidità. Quando il nonno dottore diventa stappato durante la tua fase di stap, hai una fase addizionale di mantenimento dopo questa fase. Rose Tyler è già stata spoilerata, però la rileggiamo. Rose Tyler prende +1/+1 per ogni segnalino del tempo su di essa. Ogni qualvolta Rose Tyler attacca, mette un segnalino tempo su di essa per ogni carta sospesa che controlli e ogni altro permanente che controlli con un segnalino tempo su di esso.
Bad Wolf as you go on adventures for all of the cards you control with time counters and suspended cards you own. And then once she gets her first time counter on her, I'll call out that time travel can increment those counters further. So once she gets her first time counters, every time you time travel, you can make Rose stronger as well. So Rose will often be a finisher in this deck as she grows and slowly becomes the Bad Wolf and takes over your opponents. The Ninth Doctor, the first Doctor we see of the relaunch, and he's got kind of a unique personality we haven't seen before. Tell me, James, kind of what the Ninth Doctor is all about.
Yeah, like the Ninth Doctor. So when we talked about Paul McGann earlier, regenerating and getting ready to face the Time War, this is the Doctor that is in the aftermath of the Time War. So he's super like war scarred and suffering from that, and he's having adventures like jumping into things. And when he first meets Rose, he tells her to run, and they're running from Autons and stuff. But he's quite like kind of wants to be left alone a little bit. Until he realizes actually, after Rose saves his life, he starts warming to her and realizing that actually traveling alone is not great. So throughout his entire run, you sort of see him warm up and become, vulnerable and lovely and all these brilliant things. So yeah, he's great. And Rose is just an awesome character as well, who appears throughout that run. In the artwork of the card there, you see all the planets behind her from the season 4 finale, which is a super epic moment, and she has a huge role to play for both the 9th and 10th Doctors.
All right, speaking of the 10th Doctor, let's meet the 10th Doctor and Donna Noble.
Right, so the 10th Doctor we've seen before.
Allora, il 10° dottore l'abbiamo già visto, però lo rileggiamo. Quando attacchi, esilia carte dalla cima del tuo grimorio finché non esigli una carta non terra. Metti 3 segnalini tempo su di essa. Se non ha sospendere, guadagna sospendere. 7. Viaggia nel tempo 3 volte. Attiva solo come stregoneria. Per ogni carta sospesa che controlli e ogni permanente che controlli con un segnalino tempo su di essa, puoi aggiungere o rimuovere un segnalino tempo. Quando lo fai, puoi rifarlo altre 2 volte. Donna Noble dice Soulbound, che è un'abilità di Innistrad. Puoi pareggiare questa creatura con un'altra creatura non pareggiata e quando entra nel campo di battaglia rimangono pareggiate fin tanto che controlli entrambe. Quando donna o una creatura con cui è pareggiata prende danno, donna infligge altrettanto danno a un avversario bersaglio.
A beloved duo.
Yeah, and I mean for like all completely deserved. Like they're so fun. Like they're like the 2 best friends and traveling through the universe, having fun, making fun of each other, and they just have such a like relationship that just makes you smile. And I think it's the 10th Doctor through his one goes through a lot of like traumatic moments, and I think Donna popping up for him in season 4, like the second time they meet, it's just exactly what he needs. And I mean, Donna is just like she's brilliant, and as you say, like she's not afraid to like to jump into the action. She's not afraid to tell the Doctor off and tell him what's right and wrong. And she's also like the most quotable companion ever. I quote her in my daily life. She's so brilliant.
Gavin, before we move on, I want to spend some time on the mechanic time travel, because it you know, you read the explainer text and all everything, it feels sort of self-explanatory, but this isn't the only time we see time travel, right? This is a mechanic that we see a couple times.
Yeah, there's several cards in the deck that have time travel. So every deck kind of has a mechanic it's built around. It's historic, which is a returning mechanic you've seen before in the Blast from the Past deck. But in this deck, it's time travel, which is brand new. These are the only cards in all of Magic with them for now, anyway. And it allows you, you'll see it on a number of cards. And usually you're time traveling one time, right? You're doing like an effect and you're time traveling a little bit. But David Tennant, of course, as the face character, as the 10th Doctor, we wanted to make sure he could do a lot of time traveling. So he lets you time travel 3 times. But you will see it throughout other cards in these decks. And kind of just make sure you can get that suspend engine going. You can keep your vanishing cards around. And it's a really fun mechanic to play with. And really, like, this deck is like nothing you've ever played before. Like, you've probably never built the time counter deck because there's been no support for it. And you've certainly never time traveled and manipulated your counters in these kind of ways. So it's a really unique strategy and something really special for a super popular run of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's really cool that you get to choose. You can either take counters off.
Stiamo parlando appunto di questa abilità del viaggiare nel tempo, quindi di poter aggiungere o togliere segnalini tempo da permanenti. Quindi è una meccanica di spirale temporale che torna, cioè diciamo è una meccanica che incorpora questa abilità di spirale temporale. L'11° dottore. Ogni qualvolta l'11° dottore infligge danno da combattimento a un giocatore, può esiliare una carta dalla tua mano con un numero di segnalini tempo su di esse uguali al suo costo di mana. Se non ha sospendere, guadagna sospendere. 2. Una creatura bersaglio con forza 3 o inferiore non può essere bloccata in questo turno. Amy Pond, creatura leggendaria umano. Partner con Rory Williams. Quando questa creatura entra nel campo di battaglia, un giocatore può mettere Rory Williams dalla sua mano può mettere dal grimorio nella sua mano questa carta che è Rory Williams, puoi mescolare. Quando Amy Pond infligge danno al combattimento a un giocatore, scegli una carta sospesa che controlli e rimuovi altrettanti segnalini di tempo da essa, quindi in base al danno.
He's her imaginary friend, so when he pops up, you know, many years later and she's an adult, like, she can't quite believe it. And then he vanishes again for 2 years, and then she joins him on his travels through time and space. And her story's really cool. Like, obviously, as you say, like, she's partnered. Her partner is Rory, and they have a daughter who, spoiler, turns out to be River Song, who is another really
Comunque, come stavamo dicendo, appunto, questo mazzo lavora sui segnalini tempo, su questa meccanica di spirale temporale con i segnalini tempo e quindi con sospendere. Adesso vediamo cos'altro c'è.
Evan, what's the main mechanic it's built around?
All right, so it's built around Paradox, of course. Now, you might not know what Paradox is because you've never seen it in Magic before. What Paradox is these are abilities that reward you for casting spells not from your hand. So just like the Doctor, you have to get very, very, very clever and cast those spells not from your hand, whether you're flashing them back, cascading, adventuring, foretelling, all these things and more you'll find in the deck. And I love that it really makes you feel like the Doctor. I got to just figure out exactly how you're going to pull this thing off.
Allora, si sta parlando di paradosso, questa abilità. Ogni qualvolta lanci una magia da qualsiasi posto tranne che dalla tua mano, metti un segnalino +1/+1 su una creatura bersaglio. Vediamo il 12° dottore. La prima magia che lanciamo da qualsiasi zona tranne dalla tua mano ogni turno a dimostrare. Quando lanci una magia, puoi copiarla. Se lo fai, scegli un avversario che la copia anche lui. Una copia di una magia permanente diventa un token. Quando copi una magia, metti un segnino +1/+1 sul 12° dottore. Clara Oswald. If Clara, quando Clara Oswald, se lei è il tuo comandante, scegli un colore prima che il gioco inizi. Clara Oswald è del colore scelto. Se un'abilità triggerata di un dottore che controlli triggera, questa abilità triggera una volta addizionale. Quindi è una specie di panarmonicon. Torna sempre in un modo o nell'altro questa meccanica del panarmonicon. Comunque come abilità, appunto, qua si parla di dimostrare, quindi è una nuova abilità che entra nel mondo di Magic. Quindi lanci una spell tu, il tuo avversario la può copiare. No, quando tu la lanci la puoi copiare, se lo fai, scegli un avversario e anche lui la copia. Quindi si può in un certo senso obbligare l'avversario a copiare qualcosa di scomodo o di inutile. Mm, mm. Quindi, ma strana abilità, però insomma, bisogna vedere come si evolve, ecco, in questo mazzo, ecco, con la sua meccanica, perché ovviamente, essendo che ogni mazzo ha le sue meccaniche, questo triggererà in modi diversi. Quindi sicuramente con Gio Clara il 12° dottore prende più segnalini, quindi si pompa più velocemente. Adesso vediamo altre carte. Vediamo. 13° dottore. Quindi è l'ultimo companion che fanno vedere oggi. Si parlava appunto di paradosso, quindi quando lanci una spell da qualsiasi zona tranne che dalla mano, mette segnalino +1/+1 su una creatura bersaglio. Ma il 13° dottore dice anche all'inizio della tua sottofase finale stappa ogni creatura che controlli con un segnalino su di esso. Questo è forte, soprattutto per un costo 3, non è male come comandante. Poi abbiamo Yasmin Khan. La tappiamo e esiliamo la prima carta del nostro grimorio. Fino al prossimo. Fino alla tua sottofase finale puoi giocarla. Quindi per l'effetto di Yasmin Khan possiamo giocare sia Yasmin che il 13° dottore. Perché come abbiamo detto, come hanno detto anche durante la live, come stanno dicendo, sono tutti companion, quelli che abbiamo visto finora oggi. Non so se faranno vedere altre carte, quello sì. E comunque sì, lavora quindi con Foretel, come hanno detto anche loro, lavora mm, con molte spell. Qua abbiamo un tricolor, quindi parliamo di un verde, blu, rosso. Il rosso esilia carte per poterle giocare. Il verde mi pare di sì, il blu non sono tanto sicuro. Mi pare che un po' anche il blu esili, ecco, per poter giocare. Sicuramente molto molto il rosso. Ehm, Però dice d'altronde da una zona qualsiasi oltre la mano. Oltre a quello ci sono comunque altri comandanti o comunque creature che si possono mettere dentro il mazzo che facciano questo lavoro, quindi non è male, non è male, ecco, è tutto quanto da valutare. Magari ne parliamo meglio quando abbiamo le liste sotto mano e faremo la live in cui parleremo, ecco, di tutti quanti i mazzi di Doctor Who. E per adesso, diciamo, abbiamo questo, ecco.
Different, and we've talked about this before, but give a quick overview of what is the fourth deck.
Well, we've covered all the eras of Doctor Who, but of course, just as iconic as the Doctors themselves and their companions.
Quindi ecco, abbiamo l'ultimo mazzo che è quello dei cattivi di Doctor Who. Quindi l'ultimo mazzo, boh, forse è quello che aspettavamo un po' tutti. Vediamo, vediamo.
Opponents equally, and so there's a lot of fun there to be had. Where when you're playing the decks, honestly, you feel like cackling a little bit and being the villain because you are kind of hitting everyone at once a lot of the time. And it features a new mechanic called Villainous Choice. Villainous Choice is basically making an opponent or all of your opponents choose between two bad things. You know, villains love doing this. Doctor, you have to choose who you're going to save, and it really feels villainous as you're playing. Also, call out the deck has a small artifact creature sub theme as well, given that Daleks and Cybermen and some other things are artifacts. So you'll see a little bit of that going on here too.
All right. Well, let's start off with that face commander, Davros, Dalek creator, and then on the right there you see Missy. Tell us about these two characters.
Well, Davros, it's all there in the name, right? The guy that made the.
Partiamo allora da Davros, creatore di Dalek, creatura artefatto leggendaria, scienziato alieno. Minacciare, all'inizio della nostra sottofase finale creiamo un Dalek, una creatura artefatto Dalek nera 3-3 pedina, con minacciare. Se un avversario ha perso 3 o più vite a questo turno, poi un avversario che ha perso 3 o più vite in questo turno sceglie una scelta da cattivo. Quindi o peschiamo noi una carta o un giocatore che scegliamo noi scarta una carta. Quindi no, scusate, allora noi peschiamo una carta o il nostro avversario che deve scegliere scarta una carta. Missy, quando un'altra creatura non artefatto muore, farla tornare sul campo di battaglia sotto il tuo controllo a faccia in giù e tappata. È una creatura artefatto Cyberman 2-2. All'inizio della nostra sottofase finale, ogni avversario sceglie una scelta da cattivo. Ogni creatura artefatto che controlliamo infligge un danno a quell'avversario o peschiamo una carta e il caos risolve. Perché questo è uno di quei deck che appunto ha plain cheese, carte da plain cheese, quindi per viaggiare appunto nei diversi mondi e avere comunque dei plus, ecco, da giocare durante la partita. Tenendo conto che è sempre Commander, quindi è la seconda, diciamo, la seconda ondata di mazzi con carte da plain chase.
Which is interesting because Davos, himself is different. So quite often in quite a few stories, the Doctor even refers to Davos once as a Dalek's pet, but he still has a lot of influence over the Daleks. And in that image there, you can see him like shooting energy out of his the metal glove and stuff. So yeah, super iconic character. And then on Missy, like she's such an interesting incarnation of the Master. Like her run, she was with the 12th Doctor, so Peter Capaldi, and within her run, it's all of this idea of can the Master, can Missy become good, and the Doctor really, tries his best to make her a better person. Sadly, to no avail, because we then see the Master again, of course, and they're up to their usual chaotic tricks.
All right, and then not the last card we're showing from this deck, but the last sort of character villain we're showing from this deck, Weeping Angel. You may have seen this card already, Gavin. You showed it off earlier, but
Sì, l'abbiamo già vista, Weeping Angel, quindi a lampo, attacco improvviso e cautela. Ogni qualvolta un avversario lancia una magia creatura, Weeping Angel non è più una creatura fino alla fine del turno. Se Weeping Angel sta per infliggere danno da combattimento a una creatura, previni quel danno e il controllore di quella creatura la rimescola nel suo grimorio.
You might never draw it again. Of course, there is some fun times where you'll cast it, you'll block something, and it will eventually show up again in the game, which feels fitting because sometimes the Weeping Angel sends someone back in time, and you do encounter them again. But yeah, this card comes down with flash. It can block. It can kill something off right away, and then every single turn, your opponent has to kind of worry a little bit about, oh no, do I have a creature to play to turn off that Weeping Angel? So otherwise, it'll get rid of whatever it touches. Now, one thing about the Weeping Angels is that they have these huge wings, but they don't fly. And do you want to just talk about that a bit, James? Because I know, normally in our game, if you see wings, you see flying, but Weeping Angels don't fly. So they just have these huge wings. Anything you wanted to say about that, James, to clarify for our fans?
Yeah, sure. So what's interesting, like with Weeping Angels, is like you don't often see them actually move, as you say. You only see them move once they blink, and they are the fastest. One of the fastest creatures in the universe, like deathly fast. And they disguise themselves as angels, but they're made of stone. So we never see them fly. We never think they fly. We just know they move devilishly fast. So yeah, they disguise themselves as stone angels, but don't actually fly.
all right. So now we're going to go through a handful of cards from each of the decks. So we're not done with the decks yet. And each of these cards, almost every one of these cards that we're about to show you, represents an episode of the show. And a lot of them are sagas. We've got two in here that are just so flavorful we had to include them in this section. But a lot of these represent full episodes, and they share the story of the episode. So we're going to walk through those, and we're going to talk about some of the most beloved episodes of Doctor Who, including the very first episode, An Unearthly Child.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of these sagas represent...
Saga, costo 3, riveliamo carte dalla cima del nostro grimorio finché non riveliamo un dottore. Una carta con Doctor Companion o una carta veicolo. Mettiamo quella carta in mano e il resto in fondo al nostro grimorio in un ordine qualsiasi.
Oh, I mean, it's where it all began. I mean, it's so many people who are wanting to go back and watch Classic Who. This is the one they'll often start with. You've got so much, again, iconic imagery from it. You've got the junkyard where the TARDIS is parked. You've got Coal Hill School, which is where Ian and Barbara are teachers, and they work there. They're two of the first Doctor's companions, and where they meet Susan as well, the Doctor's granddaughter. And they notice her strange behavior. They follow her to a junkyard, which is where they stumble upon the TARDIS and the Doctor. And yeah, it's just, an icon.
Qua stanno parlando, però appunto si può parlare di andare a prendere un dottore, quindi un companion del dottore e il TARDIS, quindi in 3 turni separati, ecco.
60 years of Doctor Who, like how can you not go back to the place it started?
Exactly. All right, let's take a look at our next card, the War Games. Tell us about this card.
Allora, Wargames, ogni giocatore crea 3 creature guerriero bianche 1/1. I token sono questi. I token sono sono godati fin tanto che c'è questa saga. Quindi attaccano un avversario se possibile e non possono attaccare noi. 2 e 3, metti un segnalino più 1 su ogni creatura guerriero. E 4, puoi esiliare una creatura non pedina che controlli. Quando lo fai, esilia tutti i guerrieri. Quindi dà un po' di vantaggio e possono picchiare gli altri invece che picchiare noi. Quindi ci mette contro. Si mette, diciamo, il nostro avversario picchia un altro avversario o altri avversari. Rovesciare la polarità. Invertire la polarità, ok. Istantaneo, scegli uno. Neutralizza tutte le magie, molto potenti a costo 3. Scambia la forza e la costituzione di ogni creatura fino alla fine del turno. Le creature non possono essere bloccate in questo turno. Questo è oro puro. Questa sì che è una carta forte, molto forte. Sicuramente un pezzo d'oro per Commander per quei deck che fanno controllo col blu o comunque con deck che montano il blu. Sì, molto, molto forte, molto forte.
So it's self-referenced in the show as well later on. Like the 10th Doctor says it, the 11th Doctor says it. So yeah, it's throughout the history for sure.
And then in the show, often, as you say, like it kind of deals with whatever the problem is of the moment. So this card, of course, deals with the problem of the moment. You could counter everyone else's spells. You can make sure your creatures can get through, or switch everything's power and toughness. You know, it's kind of reversing that a little bit, if you will. And it's kind of a good catch-all solution for only 3 mana.
All right. Next up, we have another saga representing an episode called City of Death.
So City of Death, a beloved
Città dei morti. Quindi è già stata spoilerata, ma la rileggiamo volentieri. Quindi creiamo un tesoro. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Creiamo una pedina che è una copia di una pedina non saga che controlliamo.
But also you can copy whatever other cool tokens you have lying around if you're really in the mood for it. And I think this is a really fun card that allows you to build with it in some really unique ways. And whether or not it's just getting a treasure every turn or copying something else that's much larger, it allows you to kind of tell your own wacky story representing the City of Death.
Our next episode as a
La cava di Androzani. Metti 2 segnalini stordimento su fino a 2 creature tappate bersaglio. Per ogni permanente non saga, scegliamo un segnalino su di esso. Possiamo mettere un segnalino aggiuntivo di quel tipo su quel permanente. E 4 dice passi una serie di Tugimare per una carta dottore, rivelala e mettila in mano, poi rimescola.
Done, but everything else, so it pumps up all your +1/+1 counters.
Ricordiamo appunto che i segnalini stun sono segnalini che al momento dello stap non fanno stappare e vengono rimossi.
Tell us about this one.
Yeah,
Questo è Viaggio del Signore del Tempo addestramento, non so come. Sì, sfida. Addestramento. Addestramento di un Signore del Tempo. 1, 2, 3. Esilia una creatura non pedina bersaglio contro un altro avversario finché questo non lascia il campo di battaglia. 4. Iniziando con te, ogni giocatore vota per innocenza innocente o colpevole, ecco. Se colpevole prende più voti, il proprietario di ogni carta esiliata con questa saga mette quella carta in fondo al suo grimorio.
Into across mini episodes, and so I'm really charmed this card has 4 chapters as well to kind of represent that.
Yeah, James, how important was this arc?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like as Gavin was saying, like the arc reached over like an entire season, and you know, he had to I think I said earlier, you know, he had to confront.
Quindi quando questa saga risolve, quando questa saga risolve abbiamo tutte quante le carte esiliate vanno in fondo al grimorio, oppure tornano sul campo di battaglia.
Curse of Fenric. Tell us about this card.
Yeah, the Seventh Doctor saga. So this has a lot of wild stuff going on.
La maledizione di Fenric. Per ogni giocatore distruggi fino a una creatura bersaglio controllata da quel giocatore. Per ogni creatura distrutta in questo modo, il suo controllore crea una creatura verde mutante con tocco letale 3-3. Quindi di base un Beast Within circa, però su creatura. Una creatura non pedina bersaglio diventa un orrore leggendario 6-6 chiamata Fenric e perde tutte le abilità. 3. Un mutante bersaglio combatte con un'altra creatura chiamata Fenric.
End of the episode, you kind of get to orchestrate your own Mutrant versus Fenric fight, and they will both implode each other, just like in the episode. There's a lot that goes on here, but we tried to capture that core essence of Hemivores show up, and then Fenric shows up, and then they fight each other at the very end. And one thing I love is chess is kind of a recurring metaphor in this episode. It even shows up, as an important plot point. And so this card really has a bit of chessy feel to it, where you're not sure what you're going to blow up, you're not sure what you're going to turn into Fenric, you're not sure what's going to fight each other, and you can do a lot with this card, and it requires you being very, very clever and crafting the board a little bit, just like the Seventh Doctor does.
All right.
Such a cool card.
It's a wild card. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to actually use this in a game. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but we're gonna move on. We got more cards to show. Next up is the Night of the Doctor. Tell us about this.
La notte del dottore. 1. Distruggi tutte le creature. Costo 6 è costoso, molto costoso. Però il punto numero 2 dice: rimetti una creatura leggendaria dal tuo cimitero sul campo di battaglia. Metti a tua scelta un segnalino attacco improvviso, cautela o legame vitale su di esso. Quindi distruggiamo tutto e lui si rigenera come un qualsiasi dottore farebbe. Quindi ogni volta che un dottore muore poi si rigenera in un altro dottore. In questo caso appunto la nostra creatura leggendaria, che sicuramente potrebbe essere il comandante, ritorna sul campo di battaglia con un segnalino attacco improvviso, cautela o legame vitale. Non è male, ecco, diciamo così, whiteboard anche rischioso, perché se spaccano la saga il tuo comandante resta al cesso e non può essere rianimato.
Got what? 5 cards left to show off. So this is Everybody Lives. So iconic that I'm not a Doctor Who.
Tutti vivono. Istantaneo. Tutte le creature guadagnano antimalocchio indistruttibile fino alla fine del turno. I giocatori guadagnano antimalocchio fino alla fine del turno. I giocatori non possono perdere vita questo turno. I giocatori non possono perdere il gioco o vincere il gioco in questo turno. Questo è un affondo pesante nei mazzi combo. Quindi un pezzo molto 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 forte, veramente forte. Secondo me questa in Commander prenderà una grossa una una grossa parte di Commander, perché molto, molto spesso i mazzi combo rovinano le partite e con questa carta si può, diciamo, eh, si può un po' ripareggiare i conti, ecco. Eh, tener conto appunto che però è una carta bianca e in un game si può essere circondati da mazzi controllo e quindi può essere counterata. Può essere counterata, quindi o si ha un counter pronto quando si casta o questa carta finisce male nel cimitero e il giocatore continua la sua combo indisturbata.
All right, let's go on to our next one, which is The Girl in the Fireplace.
La ragazza nel camino, se voi l'avete visto questo episodio, è una porta, diciamo, tra un mondo futuro e un mondo passato. Uno, creiamo una creatura umano noble, pedina, con Vanishing Trap, quindi con Vanishing 3, quindi ogni turno viene tolto un segnalino, quando viene tolto l'ultimo viene sacrificato. E previeni tutto il danno che verrebbe inflitto a questa creatura. 2. Creiamo un cavallo bianco 2-2, creatura, pedina, con i dottori che controlli hanno horsemanship, che è cavalleria, non mi ricordo come si chiama. Possono essere bloccati solo da creature con cavalleria. Cavalierato mi pare sia. 3. Ogni qualvolta una creatura che controlla infligge danno al combattimento a un giocatore in questo turno, time travel, viaggia nel tempo. Quindi possiamo aggiungere o togliere un segnalino, sospendere da un segnalino sospendere da un permanente che controlliamo o aggiungerlo. Una meccanica che lavora sicuramente anche con proliferare, ecco.
Basically of all time. So I'm going to throw to you for the 11th hour. Tell us about this episode.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, one of my favorites. I think this is a great one. Like it's such a good jumping on point for Doctor Who as well, and it's such a. I think I was saying earlier how the 11th Doctor meets Amy Pond is just such an interesting way, as you see on the card there. Like he meets her as little Amelia Pond, and then meets her years later as Amy Pond, and she's convinced that he was her imaginary friend, and then is thrust into an adventure where that's obviously not the case. There's a shape-shifting alien in there called Prisoner Zero that has escaped a crash.
Scusate, c'è una carta, adesso ve la traduco. L'11ª ora. 1. Passa il segnato grimorio per una carta d'autore, rivelala e mettila in mano, poi rimescola. 2. Creiamo una pedina cibo e una creatura umano bianca 1-1 con i dottori che lanci costano 1 in meno per essere lanciati. 3. Crea una pedina che è una copia di una creatura bersaglio, eccetto che è un alieno leggendario nato chiamato Prigione Zero, che è come quell'episodio appunto di Doctor Who in cui appunto c'è questa bestia sul pianeta Terra. Il primo episodio penso della quarta o della quinta stagione.
Fingers and custard, if you know the episode. And then at the end, of course, Prisoner Zero shows up, who loves, kind of copying other people. So you get to get a token that's a copy of something, except his name is Prisoner Zero. So nice and flavorful for that episode.
Yeah. And then James, tell us about this next episode, Heaven Sent.
Yeah, Heaven Sent is such a good episode. So you've got basically two sort of characters. One really in this
Spedito
episode,
dal
the Doctor
paradiso.
and the figure.
1 e 2
cloaked there, following
investighiamo,
him.
quindi
And
facciamo
this episode, so the
una
Doctor's just lost Clara.
pedina,
Clara,
colpelliamo 2 e,
spoilers, Clara has
sacrificandola peschiamo.
died on
We're past the
Per
point
2
of
turni.
spoilers at
Il
this
terzo
point.
turno,
I know, it's
questa
over,
saga
guys,
infligge
like,
un danno a ogni
Um,
avversario.
so,
Poi se ogni
yeah, the
avversario
Doctor,
ha 0 o
has been
meno punti
trapped,
vita,
in
pesca
this
7
world,
carte,
and,
altrimenti
is-
esilialo,
he's trying to work
esilia
out what's
Vincent
going on, and
e la puoi
as he's
lanciare
trying to
questo
work it out,
turno.
he is constantly followed by this slow moving creature behind him, and
Quindi
no
un
matter
continuo
how
riciclo
far
di
away he runs from it, it's always
questa,
following him and
di
getting
questa
closer
saga.
and closer and closer, and it's trying to find something. And he slowly starts working out what's going on wrong, and then is faced with basically a wall of a massive wall which is made from something stronger than diamond, and he punches the wall to try and like get through it, and he's making like little indents in it. And what we soon discover is that every time the creature catches up with him, it kills the Doctor. He goes back and he resets everything, and then he has to like relive everything he's done again and again and again. We turn out that he's been trapped in this loop for billions of years, and as time goes on, he eventually punches through that wall and ends up on Gallifrey. And it turns out that he was stuck in something called the confession dial, which is what the Time Lords were using to try and get information from him. So yeah, it's such a cool, creepy episode, and just constantly the Doctor trying to work out what's going on, and literally it taking him billions of years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a classic time loop episode in a way, right? Where he keeps realizes he keeps doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like you said, James, when he dies, he gets kind of reborn, as it were, and then does the same exact thing again. But every time he punches through that wall a tiny bit more, and over billions and however long it takes, I don't remember if it's actually billions in the show, but after a very long time, he eventually breaks through the wall. It's an extremely long time, as you kind of might imagine, to punch through a wall of diamond. And so what the card mechanics do is on that third chapter, you deal 1 damage to your opponents. Then most of the time, you're just going to start the time loop again. You're going to exile Heaven Sent. You can play it again this turn and restart the whole thing. But if you get to your opponent to exactly 0 life, if you finally punch through that wall, you get to draw 7 cards and the time loop ends, which is this really cool, flavorful moment on this card that we were so happy we got to bring to life.
All right. We're going to do one more preview card, and then we're going to show off some of the booster fun from this set. The last preview card is Fugitive of the Jadoon.
Okay, so
Fuggitiva del Jadoon. Crea una creatura bianca 1/1 umana con Ward 2 e un rinoceronte alieno 4/4 bianco. 2 investiga. 3 puoi esiliare un umano che controlli e un artefatto che controlli. Se lo fai, passi nel segno tuo Ghimora per una carta d'attore, mettere sul campo di battaglia, poi rimescola.
She is the Doctor. She has a TARDIS. She has lots of traits of the Doctor. She's very, head first and very confident. And seeing her Doctor and the 13th Doctor interact together is it's a multi-Doctor story, which is always very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And it is this huge mystery. And so when we see her, she's kind of forgotten her memory. She's on Earth. So she comes in as this 1/1 white human creature token. And these Jadoon are pursuing her. So you get a 4/4 rhino token. Then a bit of investigation happens. And then at the end of toward the end of the episode, she unlocks her memories, basically. So you get rid of that clue, you get rid of that human, and you have to go find whatever doctor you want, perhaps even the fugitive doctor, and put it right into play. So it's a great showing off of what happens in the story in the card mechanics.
All right. Well, that is our last preview card for this episode. Previews, of course, are going to be going on all this week, so make sure that you're paying attention to that for the Doctor Who decks. But we want to show off, so we did something cool with this set that we've never done before, which is that we have the decks. We have the 4 pre-constructed decks that, of course, you can purchase individually, play right out of the box. Awesome. But if you're into cool treatments, if you're into different art styles, we also have collector boosters for this set. There you go. You can see those right on the screen. And those come, of course, with some pretty fantastic booster fun, which are different art treatments, different border styles. So let's show those, and Gavin, you can talk through what these are.
Quindi stiamo parlando appunto dei trattamenti, ecco, delle showcase, ecco, di questo set. Indubbiamente abbiamo quelle full art, come quasi tutti i set, direi, in modo da poter giocare, insomma, i comandanti in una, in una skin un po' più bella, ecco. E in più appunto abbiamo anche il frame di Doctor Who, quindi tutti quanti i dottori con queste immagini cartonate o comunque diverse, incastonate in questo TARDIS, in questa carta TARDIS, diciamo. E sono belle, ecco, sono molto belle. Ma insomma, non so, io sinceramente preferisco di più quelle full art.
Out of, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the number is 500 plus whatever the Doctor's number is. So it's,
Correct, yeah.
for example, the 12th Doctor would be serialized out of 512. The 13th Doctor would be serialized out of 513. And so, it gives you a couple extra numbers there you can find and a little bit of a flavorful nod for that character.
Absolutely. And then we have the Booster Fun versions of companions.
Yep, so a number of companions, not every companion, but a number of iconic companions got this treatment. So Rose, Sarah Jane Smith, Yasmin Khan, you can all find here in this cool treatment. And there's also some other things that get it too, which we'll see here in a moment, as well as extended art versions of these cards. So here's many of the companions we saw today in that cool extended art version. You can find it in collector boosters. One thing we love about this is it lets you bling out your these cards, right? Normally, when you release a Commander Precon, that's kind of the only way you can get these cards, so you can't find them in foil or extended art or anything like that. They only exist in those Precons. But with the collector boosters, if you want to bling out your Commander deck with your favorite of these cards, you can go and find them in some cool alterations. Foils, extended art, serialized versions, the TARDIS frame, and I love that you're able to kind of go forward and make your deck as awesome as you want to be for that full Doctor Who experience.
Absolutely. All right, well, that is everything we have to show you today, but that is not everything from the Doctor Who Commander set. We are going to be showing off cards from that set all week, all over the internet, either from us, Wizards of the Coast, or from various people who love Magic and or Doctor Who. So, James, thank you for joining us from all the way across the pond. Gavin, thanks for joining us as well. Thank you for joining us at home, and we'll see you next week.
E questo è tutto. Sta un po' sclerando il mio computer. Adesso vediamo se riesco a ripristinare le cose. Ok. Qua c'è ancora il logo di Terre Selvaggi di Elden. Va bene, ok. Scusate, ma io ho iniziato la live molto velocemente e non sono riuscito a organizzare tutto quanto bene. Ecco, questo è quanto. Comunque sia, stava dicendo verso la fine appunto che ci sono anche le carte serialized, quindi numerate di Doctor Who, e quindi sono 450 o 500, credo, pezzi singoli di carte foil. Ci saranno solo le collector come booster, quindi niente set booster o draft booster. Quindi se volete draftare dovete draftare collector booster, quindi giù con i soldi. E che dire, per oggi è tutto. Comunque rimanete sintonizzati su Instagram, perché pubblicheremo sempre e costantemente spoiler di Doctor Who e spoiler di qualsiasi altra cosa, cercando di pubblicarle prima degli altri. Se li pubblichiamo dopo vuol dire che non abbiamo la certezza più totale che siano spoiler veri, ecco. Quindi preferiamo non pubblicare porcate o carte immaginarie che non esistono, o leak che potrebbero non essere confermati, eccetera, 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 eccetera. Ma sicuramente solo e soltanto carte che sono, diciamo, confermate, ecco, quindi non carte di tipi diversi, ecco. Io vi ringrazio di essere stati con me, qua ormai non regge più la simulazione del mio gatto. E che dire, vi ringrazio come sempre. Per sapere le date delle live non c'è altro modo che seguire il canale di Instagram di Reborn Spoilers. Questo per oggi è veramente tutto, vi saluto e ci vediamo alla prossima live. Mondo gatto!